Hello, I'm so glad you've chosen to join me for another message from the Bible. We've been going through the Gospel of Mark, and so far we have seen Jesus call some fishermen to join him in his mission to lead people to God. Jesus called these fishermen to become fishers of men. We have seen Jesus healing people and forgiving sins because he cares. Before he healed the paralytic, Jesus told him his sins are forgiven because Jesus cares not just about our physical problems, but also about our spiritual problems. Let's get into today's text where we will look at the calling of Matthew in Mark chapter 2, verses 14 through 17. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And as he reclined at the table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. And the scribes of the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." When we look at who Jesus called to be his followers, many would be the last people you would expect. First of all, you had some poor, uneducated fishermen, and now a tax collector. Now, if you think tax collectors aren't like today, it was even worse then. Part of that was that many would take more money from people than they had to, just because they could and they could pocket the profits there. This made them hated by people because many of them were not good people. And on top of that, they were seen as traitors to the Hebrew nation because they were collecting taxes for the Roman government who were occupying their country. So this is not the first person others would have recruited. Yet this is exactly who Jesus wants on his team, because Jesus sees Matthew can become a very good person. The religious people of Jesus' day were shocked that Jesus was sitting with and eating with tax collectors and sinners. They were thinking a good Jewish teacher would not hang out with people like those. Jesus' response was, "These are the people who need me the most, those who are sick with sin and are in need of a spiritual doctor." Jesus did not treat people badly or stay away from them just because they had done bad things in their past. We need to treat people good no matter who they are or what they have done, and see them like Jesus sees them, as children of God that need help finding their way back to God. Now, before we get into the main story, we need to know what the Sabbath is. Now, the Sabbath was and is Saturday, the seventh day of the week. It was the primary day of worship for the Jews. God commanded in Exodus 20 to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. He said, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day it's a Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work. And this applied to family, servants, animals, and visitors. God's command for the Sabbath was pretty simple: do no work. Yet people had made this command difficult by trying to figure out what we can call work. How far can one walk? Can you shut a window? Can you tie a knot? Can I scrape crumbs off a table? Writing letters, and so on. Because of this, they had made up many rules to try to make sure they did not accidentally break God's rule of do not work on the Sabbath. With all that in mind, let's jump into Mark chapter 3 and read verses 1 through 6. Again, he entered the synagogue, and a man was there with a withered hand, and they watched Jesus to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man with the withered hand, "Come here." And he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save a life or to kill?" But they were silent, and he looked around at them with anger, grieved at their hardness of heart, and said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately held counsel with the Herodians against him, how to destroy him. So we see here a man with a withered hand comes to Jesus on the Sabbath, and everyone watched to see what Jesus would do. Would Jesus dare to heal someone on the Sabbath? To them, this would mean breaking the Sabbath law. Jesus then asked the question, is it right to do good on the Sabbath? Can you save a life on the Sabbath? And no one dared answer the question. They probably believed in their hearts that the answer to that question was no, but no one wants to say you can't help someone or save a life just because it is the Sabbath. And so Jesus then heals the man on the Sabbath to show that you can indeed do good on the Sabbath. God never meant this law to keep people from helping others. God never made a law against helping other people. He desires goodness and mercy over ritual. Doing good is always right. I want to skip ahead a little more to the end of Mark chapter 3 and read verses 31 through 35. And his mother and his brothers came, and standing outside, they sent to him and called him. And a crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, Your mother and your brothers are outside seeking you. And he answered them, Who are my mother and my brothers? And looking about at those who sat around him, he said, Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of God, he is my brother and sister and mother. Jesus is told his mom and his brothers are looking for him, and he grabs this moment to teach the people around him an important lesson. He tells the people around him, You are my family if you do what God commands. See, we are Jesus' brothers and sisters if we do what God tells us to do in his word. I can think of no better big brother to have than Jesus. This means we are family of Jesus and of God the Father, but it also means we are brothers and sisters with one another. And brothers and sisters look out for one another, and they help one another and have each other's backs when bad things happen. But we have to follow God's rules for living, which we find in the Bible. God wants us to treat others good no matter who they are or what they have done. Jesus wants us to see all people as precious children of God, even those who are not following his rules. It is always right to do good deeds for people, and God does not command against doing what is good. If we do what God tells us in his Bible, we are God's family, brothers and sisters of Jesus Christ, and Jesus will be with us throughout our lives. I hope you've gotten something from today's lesson. I encourage you to check out these videos if you haven't already done so, and I hope you have a great week, and God bless you.